At 81, you begin to notice something quiet, almost invisible, creeping beneath the surface of your life. It's not sudden. It doesn't announce itself, but it's there. Always there. Nobody tells you about it. Nobody warns you. You think you've lived long enough to know what matters, to survive the storms of life, to escape the mistakes of youth. But there's a shadow no one talks about, a truth that waits patiently until it's too late. You remember the days when time felt infinite, when you thought your body, your mind, even your relationships were unshakable. You believed life would give you more years, more chances, more clarity. You believed you were safe. But safety, you realize too late, is an illusion. And now, you begin to see the cracks, the subtle shifts, the things you dismissed as small, meaningless. They were warnings, and yet, you ignored them. By the time you understand what's happening, it's already slipping through your fingers, not like a thief in the night, but like the slow erosion of everything you thought you held dear. And you wonder what would have been different if you had known. If someone had spoken the truth, if you had really listened. Because there is a point, just one point, when even the wisest, the strongest, the most careful cannot turn back. And that point is closer than you think. Tonight, I want to tell you what nobody warns you about before it's too late. But once you hear it, there's no forgetting. And what comes next will change the way you see everything. Because the first cracks are already forming, and the illusion of safety is about to shatter. For most of our lives, we live inside a quiet confidence, a feeling that everything will hold, that the walls we've built around our homes, our routines, our relationships are solid. We tell ourselves stories of stability, stories that comfort us, that convince us the world is predictable, controllable, safe. I remember feeling that way at 40, at 50, even at 70. The bills were paid, the children were grown, the routines were familiar. You believed that knowledge, experience, and caution were shields strong enough to withstand anything life could throw at you. And for a while, it works. History is full of people who felt the same. Nations that believed their borders were invincible. Companies that believed their markets were eternal. Families that believed love alone could protect them. And yet when the first subtle tremor appeared, everything began to shift. Denial is comforting. It whispers in your ear, "It's not happening. Don't worry. You're fine." And for years, you follow its voice. You laugh at the warning signs, rationalize the discomfort, convince yourself it's nothing. But the cracks, they are always there, always forming beneath the surface. Small, quiet, almost invisible. I remember the first time I noticed them in my own life. It was subtle. A forgotten appointment, a misplaced key, a fleeting moment of dizziness I shrugged off. Nothing dramatic, nothing life-changing, just a flicker of something out of place. And like everyone else, I ignored it. We are wired to believe in permanence, to believe that the patterns of our past guarantee the patterns of our future. We look at our routines, our possessions, our health, and we tell ourselves we are safe, that the world will continue exactly as it always has. But safety, real safety, is a lie. Even when the sun rises on a quiet morning, even when the house is warm, even when the world seems calm, the first shadows are already moving. They do not shout. They do not demand attention. They wait, patient, persistent. And then, the first warning signs appear. A tremor in your hand, a misunderstanding with someone you love, a letter that unsettles you, a memory that doesn't return the way it should. It's tempting to brush them aside, to call them accidents, to call them just life. But the truth is, they are not accidents. They are the beginning, the very first whisper of the storm to come. And when the storm arrives, the illusion of safety will no longer protect you. The question is, will you see it coming in time? Or will you, like so many before, wait too late and realize the foundation you trusted was already crumbling? Because the first cracks are about to widen. The first cracks rarely announce themselves with fanfare. They arrive quietly, almost politely. A subtle shift in routine, a fleeting memory that refuses to settle, a word spoken the wrong way. You shrug it off. You tell yourself it's nothing. You convince yourself that tomorrow will be the same as yesterday, but it isn't. And deep down, you feel it, a gnawing, a tension you cannot name. At 81, these cracks are no longer subtle. They have texture, they have weight, and they touch every corner of life you once thought unshakable. The mind begins to betray the body. The body begins to betray the mind. Small missteps, a door handle missed, a stumble on the stairs, they are brushed aside, but each one carries a warning, a message you are unwilling to hear. Friends begin to disappear. Some move away, some fall silent, some pass on, and the world you once thought permanent starts to shrink inch by inch, day by day. The first cracks in relationships are even harder to face. Misunderstandings grow like weeds, subtle grievances are ignored, and yet they spread. The laughter you once shared feels distant, almost foreign. You try to recreate it, but it slips through your fingers. And then there are the warnings you cannot ignore. The medical bills, the tests, the appointments, the waiting rooms that smell faintly of antiseptic and time. Each one is a whisper. Something is changing. Something is slipping. You try to rationalize it. You tell yourself, I'm still fine. I'm careful. I am aware. But awareness alone cannot undo what is already beginning. At night, in the silence of your own thoughts, you start to feel it more acutely. The unease, the tension, the dread that something fundamental, something you never imagined losing, might be gone before you even realize it. You see it in the news, in history, in stories of others. Those who laughed off the first cracks, those who ignored the small signs. They always tell the same story, a slow erosion, a gradual unraveling, until one day there is nothing left to hold on to. And yet, we keep pretending, we keep walking forward, we keep living as if everything is unchanged. But the cracks, they widen, subtle, then more pronounced, ignored, then unavoidable, dismissed, then undeniable. At this stage, the danger is not obvious. It doesn't scream. It doesn't hit like a hammer. It creeps into the spaces you least suspect. It steals confidence. It steals certainty. It steals time. And soon, you reach the moment where ignoring it is no longer possible. The cracks that once whispered now shout. The illusions you clung to now crumble. And the life you thought would always be there begins to slip away. Because denial can only carry you so far, and the first cracks are never the last. The cracks you once whispered about now demand attention. They no longer wait politely in the shadows. They are visible. They are loud, and yet we still find ways to deny them. We dress them up in excuses. It's just stress. It's overthinking. Everyone forgets things sometimes, but deep down, you know it is more than that. You see it in the mirror, in the hesitation of your own steps, in the subtle tremor in your hand, the fading strength in your voice. The world outside mirrors your denial. Society refuses to confront uncomfortable truths. Governments postpone action. Communities justify complacency. Even the experts hedge their warnings with words like uncertain or unlikely. And in our personal lives, the escalation is just as relentless. Loved ones begin to argue over trivialities. Friendships fray. Affection becomes measured. The warmth of connection once constant, grows cold. We rationalize. We blame. We convince ourselves it is temporary, that soon the balance will return, that life will snap back into place. But the tension continues to grow. The cracks deepen. And for those of us who have lived long enough to recognize them, the fear is quiet, slow burning, the kind that sits in your chest and refuses to leave. I remember a moment, sitting alone in the late afternoon sun, when it hit me, a truth I had long avoided. Some things once broken cannot be fully repaired. Some losses are irreversible. Some mistakes are fatal not because they happen suddenly, but because they were ignored for too long. The irony is cruel. We live our lives avoiding danger, carefully navigating the visible threats, while the invisible ones, the ones that whisper and fade, grow quietly, relentlessly. And when the escalation becomes undeniable, the mind reacts in predictable ways. Denial, anger, bargaining. We tell ourselves it's not happening. We search for scapegoats. We cling to fragments of comfort. I have watched this unfold, not just in my life, but in the lives of countless others. People I once admired, brilliant, disciplined, careful, undone, because they ignored the subtle signs, because they believed the illusion of control. At this stage, the emotional weight becomes unbearable. Anxiety gnaws at the edges of every thought. Sleep becomes restless. Every conversation carries an undercurrent of tension. And yet we continue to pretend, to maintain appearances, to convince ourselves that nothing has changed. But it has. Everything has changed. And then comes the moment when the realization hits. A heavy, unavoidable truth. A truth you have sensed for years, but refused to name. You understand, perhaps too late, that the path you chose, the warnings you ignored, the moments of denial, they have led you here, to this fragile edge. And on the other side, there is no turning back. The escalation is complete. The cracks have widened, and the life you thought would always be stable teeters on the brink. Because soon, there will be a point of no return. There comes a moment in every life, a single point where the path forks, and one choice will define everything that comes after. For most of us, it is invisible at first, a subtle hesitation, a decision that seems small, harmless even, but it carries a weight far beyond comprehension. I remember mine. I was 81, sitting in a quiet room that smelled faintly of dust and old wood. Outside, the sunlight slanted through the blinds, casting long shadows across the floor. And I knew I could either act or do nothing. I could face the truth or continue pretending it wasn't there. It's tempting to ignore these moments, to believe that time will give you another chance, to assume that life will circle back and offer redemption, but it won't. Not always. And that is the cruel lesson. The point of no return does not announce itself. It doesn't knock or demand attention. It waits quietly, patiently, for you to make a choice, for you to fail to choose at all. Looking back, I see the warnings clearly now. Every small crack, every ignored tremor, every instance of denial, all of them pointed toward this single, irreversible moment. And I hesitated. By the time I acted, the path had narrowed. The doors I thought were open were closing. The lifelines I assumed I had were slipping away. And no matter how hard I tried to turn back the clock, to reclaim what I had ignored, the consequences were already in motion. The regret is sharp. Not the kind that fades with time, but the kind that lingers, that haunts the edges of your thoughts. You realize that a lifetime of careful planning, of discipline, of intelligence, cannot undo a single moment of inaction. I have seen it in others too. The careful, the brilliant, the cautious, undone because the warning signs were dismissed. The cracks were ignored. The moment was lost. It is a cruel teacher. Life gives you a final opportunity, but it does not announce itself. And when you miss it, When you fail to act, there is no correction. There is no second chance. And then the weight of it settles in. The awareness that the choices you thought were trivial were anything but, that the path you believed was endless was always finite. Because the point of no return is not about what you do wrong. It is about what you fail to do. And once you cross it, everything changes forever. The cracks are no longer subtle. The illusions are gone, and the life you once trusted begins to unravel. What happens next cannot be undone. And then it happens. Slowly, quietly, not like a sudden explosion, but like water seeping into cracks in a foundation, relentless, unstoppable. The life you thought you controlled begins to collapse. First, the small things. A conversation that spirals into argument. A task you once handled effortlessly now impossible. A memory that fails you when you need it most. Then the larger fractures appear. Friends drift away. Family tensions surface. Health falters. Opportunities vanish. Security dissolves. And you feel it, deep in your chest, in your bones. The world is no longer yours to hold. The collapse is not dramatic. It is subtle, insidious. It begins in the mind, creeps into the body, and spreads into every corner of your existence. The routines that once offered comfort now feel hollow. The places you once called home feel strange. The people you love most are distant, almost strangers. Fear sets in, not panic, not sudden terror, but a slow gnawing anxiety, a shadow that lingers over every thought, every movement. The collapse has a rhythm, and you are caught inside it, powerless to resist. You try to stabilize, you reach for control, you remind yourself of your past strength, your knowledge, your experience, but it is gone. The point of no return ensures that nothing will restore what has been lost. And in that silence, that emptiness, you understand the full weight of the consequences. They are not just mistakes, they are irreversible, they are permanent, and they leave their mark, silent, lingering, unforgiving. You watch life continuing around you. Others move forward. The world spins indifferent, but for you, it is different. Everything that once felt solid has shifted. Everything that once promised stability has vanished. And yet, the most haunting part is not what is lost. It is the clarity, the understanding that this collapse was always inevitable, that every ignored sign, every rationalized warning, every hesitation built toward this. You realize too late that life is fragile, that the illusions of control, safety, and permanence are just that, illusions, and the consequences are patient. They wait, they never forgive. The collapse is complete, not with violence, not with sound, but with emptiness, a quiet that presses against your chest, a silence that fills every corner of your world. And when you look back, you see the full path, every ignored crack, every misstep, every moment of denial, and you know there is no undoing, no redemption, only the weight of what has been lost. What remains after this is the quiet realization that life as you knew it is gone. After the collapse, there is only silence, not the silence of peace, not the quiet of rest, but a hollow, stretching emptiness that fills every room, every thought, every heartbeat. You wander through the remnants of your life, familiar spaces that feel foreign. Faces you once knew intimately are now distant, almost shadows of themselves. Conversations echo in your mind long after they've ended. And in this silence, you begin to see everything you ignored, every warning sign, every subtle crack, every hesitation that seemed insignificant at the time, now glaringly obvious. Regret is not a sharp sting here. It is a slow, persistent ache, A reminder that you could have acted differently, that you could have paid attention, listened harder, chosen wisely, but you didn't. It's tempting to think, if only I had noticed sooner, if only I had cared more, if only I had faced the truth. But time offers no such consolation. The past does not bend to desire. The point of no return does not forgive. And yet, there is a clarity in this aftermath, a brutal, painful truth. You see the fragility of life, the weight of every decision, the cost of denial, the inevitability of consequences. At 81, I have come to understand that life is not measured by the years we survive, but by the moments we truly face, the moments we confront reality, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it is frightening, even when the truth shakes the foundation of everything we believed. And in this reflection, I also see the most important lesson. Awareness alone is not enough. Action is required. Courage is required. And sometimes the smallest decisions, made in time, can mean the difference between preservation and collapse. But for those of us who ignored the whispers, who rationalized the cracks, who delayed, we are left with the echo, the quiet weight of a life partially lost, the awareness of what could have been, and the haunting certainty of what can never be regained. And in the stillness, you understand that life is fragile, that time is a thief, that denial is a cage, and that the most devastating truths are those we refuse to see until it was too late. Because the aftermath is not just what remains, it is the truth staring back at you. Now listen carefully. This is not a story about someone else. It is about you, about the life you are living right now, the moments you are choosing or ignoring. The cracks exist in your world too. They are subtle. They are quiet. They appear where you least expect them. In your body, your mind, your relationships, your time. And if you ignore them, rationalize them, or hope they will disappear, they will grow, slowly, relentlessly, until one day, you cross the point of no return. No one warns you about this. No one tells you the truth about how fragile everything really is. They tell you to enjoy life, to plan carefully, to work hard, but they do not tell you that the real danger is often invisible, creeping into your life while you sleep, while you laugh, while you pretend everything is fine. At 81, I see it clearly now. The illusions of safety, the denial, the hesitation, every choice or failure to choose has consequences, and the most devastating moments are not the ones that arrive suddenly, but the ones we allowed to grow quietly, unchecked, until it was too late. So I speak to you now, not with anger, not with accusation, but with urgency. Do not wait. Do not ignore the whispers. Do not assume time is infinite. Face the cracks. Face the warnings. Confront the uncomfortable truths that you are tempted to avoid. Because the difference between a life preserved and a life lost is in the attention you give today. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. And if you do not, the echoes of regret will wait for you, patient, merciless, unforgiving. Remember this: the cracks are always there. The point of no return is always closer than it seems. And the truth you refuse to face now will be the truth that follows you forever. So see it. Acknowledge it. Act. Or one day, you will wake and realize it is too late.